Good afternoon, everyone. We are glad to be back for another episode of Conversations from Stritch, and I am glad, as usual, to be joined by Dr. Christopher Sint, our provost. Just a couple initial comments and announcements before we kind of get into the substance of our show. We do have a prayer service this afternoon, Martin Luther King Remembrance Prayer Service that'll be in the chapel at 3:30. It'll also be live streamed, so please either join us in person or join us online. We'll look forward to that. And as I think about prayers today, one of the people that came up in my prayers today is Professor Matthew Lang, psychology professor, former psychology professor here at Lewis, who was killed 5 years ago in Naperville. The police in Naperville have still not solved the case, and some of you in our audience may see there have been some news stories on it on the Chicago news. So we just keep Matthew's family in our prayers and remember him. He was a really great member of our community. I did want to say that this past week we also last Friday, so since the last show, which we talked about last week, we had our strategic planning town hall. And I want to offer my thanks to everyone who came to the event. We had over 200 people that showed up for the town hall last week on Friday. It was a great set of questions that came out of it. Grateful for all the people that presented. I think we've really made some significant progress in terms of both taking in all that the community has to offer on this idea of where does Lewis want to be over the next 5-7 years. But also we're really trying to communicate. And I'll say once again, we say it so often, but please, even if you weren't able to come to the town hall or something in the show today or anything else comes to your mind about our future, you can always send an idea, a comment, or a question to ask us at lewisu.edu. It's always available. We check it all the time. So please, not only for our show, but feel free to do that. I did want to make a few comments because there's been actually a lot of issues. Sometimes this happens in winter because I know it's happening at my own house, but I want to talk about our issues of facilities issues that have been going on campus lately. And I want to apologize for the inconvenience that these issues have caused for so many members of our community. First, we did have a pipe that was leaking under the ground outside of the Fine Arts building. Just a little comment on that. We have been fixing, and we've fixed about 90% of this underground pipe, which actually, maybe more information than you want to know, but our heating system for the entire campus is built on this underground pipe system where we boil the water, send it throughout the system. It's pressurized, so there's high pressure in the system, which means that any kind of weak link in the system can cause a leak underground. And so we've been fixing that every summer, doing a little bit. Many of you have seen those, parking lots torn up, et cetera. So anyway, we had a leak that happened right outside the Fine Arts building. It's one of the last sections, and it'll be fully fixed this summer, but we did have to do a repair, and it has caused a disruption over at that building, both in terms of heating the inside of the building, but also the sidewalks leading up to the building, and there's guard stuff around so you can't get through certain areas. So we apologize for the disruption there. The second thing that everybody, I think, is aware of, because if you get emails from us in emergencies, you've gotten several emails over the last, or texts over the last 3 weeks around both the email, but also the power in the LRC, the internet, the ability to use the banner system in Cognos. I just want to talk a little bit about what happened, because I don't want people to think that our IT system is actually falling apart. We had a bad fuse initially. That was the first thing that happened. And so we had to send out to get a new fuse, something we didn't, have laying around. And so that took the system down. Then when we replaced the fuse, a transformer actually blew, the transformer in that building. So now that is on order. And in order to deal with this, in the meantime, we ordered a generator, which many of you have had to drive around as you come into the main entrance, because it's the size of a trailer. Then a third thing happened. So this most recent one that you got an email about, in the middle of the night, we were dealing with another issue. I guess apologies to the students who had to get up in the middle of the night because there was water in their residence halls. So a sprinkler broke and the water came down and we had to move some people around. Well, the facility guys were checking on the generator and it was off. And then when they tried to restart it, actually a fire started in that generator, so we had to replace it. And I couldn't make this up. It sounds like a bad story, but, and it's, of course, it's not funny in the sense that I just want to say to the workers that get up at 2 a.m. to come in, both in IT and facilities, how grateful we are for you allowing us to continue to have what has now become really something that we're all totally dependent on, which is our email, our ability to get onto Blackboard, our ability to get into Banner and Cognos. So just incredible gratitude to everyone who has fixed these, but also to the community, a sense of we are still working on it, but it should be completely up and running and ready to go, I would say in the next week and we're creating redundancies. So I also want people to know that redundancy issue will take some time, but we're really working to make sure that this doesn't happen again and certainly doesn't happen on this regular basis. So anyway, enough on all of our facilities issues. So I want to move to kind of exciting news about what's going on with our faculty and staff and some of the stuff that has been happening on campus. So Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Great to be with everybody. So a couple pieces of campus news. Dr. Hisong Lee, Assistant Professor of Elementary Education, has published 2 articles as a co-author in the scholarly journal called The Gifted Child Quarterly. The titles of those articles are Challenges and Efforts of Achieving Equity Beyond Gifted Education, Implications for Mathematics Education, and the other article is called Validity Evidence of the Hope Scale in Korea, Identifying Gifted Students from Low-Income and Multicultural Families. Really interesting work that Dr. Lee does. Congratulations to Dr. Lily Burciaga, Assistant Professor of Psychology, who gave the keynote speech called But First, Self-Care on January 8th at the 27th National Conference of Kappa Phi Lambda Sorority. And then last, the recently published chapbook by Drs. Simone Mensch, English professor, and Jackie White, Professor Emeritus, is currently being voted on for the Chicago Reader's annual Best of Chicago series. The chapbook is called Hex and Howl and is in a finalist in the category called Best New Poetry Collection by a Chicagoan. So that's wonderful work by our faculty that we're so pleased is happening. So some news about athletics?
Yes. And I do want to say that when the book came out, I think you mentioned it kind of probably on the show.
Maybe. When
it came out about a year ago. And I ordered it. It took a while to get in because small publishing house, but it's really some great poetry. And I'm no poet critic, but I enjoy what I enjoy.
And I'm no expert on that contest, but I assume we can vote on it.
Yes, so members of the Lewis community could probably vote.
Chicago Reader.
So yeah, excellent.
Yeah, so check that
Great
out.
point. Great. So athletically, Lewis University's 7th-ranked men's volleyball team is heading to Southern California. I know many of us are jealous, not just because they're headed to Southern California and it's warmer there than it is here, for a couple matches this weekend against the 5th-ranked Pepperdine University squad and the 2nd-ranked UCLA squad. We had a tough loss last weekend against what was then the 5th-ranked squad from UC Santa Barbara. Santa Clara, Long Beach. I keep mixing these all up. Anyway, I watched that and it was a tough one. But it's volleyball is one of those games where just a few points here and there in the middle of a match changes the feel of the whole thing. So good luck to them this weekend. The Friday's match starts at 9 Central Time. Saturday's match starts at 7 Central Time. They'll both be, amazing teams on both sides of the net to watch. Lewis men's and women's basketball visit Illinois Springfield tonight, 5 and 7:30 for those start times. You can also see those on our athletic site. The men's team will then play Truman State Monday night at 6 p.m. So in those games, some of these games are trying to catch up for some canceled. So we're gonna, as we go through these week by week over the next 3 weeks, you're gonna hear about multiple games for men's and women's basketball, especially because they lost the most contests because of COVID, but are really back and both doing really well. Men's and women's track and field compete this weekend at the Shook Open in Mankato, Minnesota, tomorrow and Saturday after a really great showing last weekend in Notre Dame. I'll tell you, we had some provisional marks, but also some first place and top 5 finishes by many of our runners and field athletes. So congratulations to them. And then men's lacrosse has a scrimmage this Saturday at noon at Lewis Stadium. That is going to be cold. A cold day to have a lacrosse match. I just met myself, the new assistant coach, yesterday, and so we were talking a little lacrosse, and it was great to meet him. I get the opportunity to meet all of our new employees and just enjoy hearing people's background. But lacrosse is such a great game, and if you haven't, I probably have said this last year, but some people have never watched lacrosse where everybody's watched baseball, basketball. If you've never watched a lacrosse match, I highly recommend. Maybe not, this weekend, sure, but it's going to be cold. But certainly as the spring season progresses, get out there to the stadium and watch a lacrosse match, learn a little bit about the game. So anyway, we also, of course, have COVID with us, but things are getting better, Chris.
Yeah, and before I go into that, I'm struck. I was going to look this up actually, and I just didn't get to it before now, but I wonder what the difference in temperature in Mankato, Minnesota is in Los Angeles, California this weekend. I know both contests are indoors, but still.
Oh yeah, just walking to the bus
our
in
student
those two
athletes
places.
have an incredible range of abilities to live in different conditions, do their work in different conditions.
Just one more thing on athletics before we let it go, and only because we ran into one of our hockey players on our walk over, and they have their senior night next weekend. So that'll probably be on the show next Thursday, but just a point, if you're kind of putting your calendar together, the men's hockey team plays over at Canlan, just 10 minutes from here in the ice arena. So senior night is next weekend.
Great point. So turning to COVID now, and this is a day of anniversaries, or a week of anniversaries, as many are, but this week marked the 2-year anniversary of the first reported case of COVID-19 in Illinois. At that time, it's just really hard to imagine. None of us could have imagined the impact that COVID-19 has had, and how much our society would change over this 2-year period. So it's a little bit of a time of reflection as we reflect on these last 2 years. We are just so proud of how our university has lived out its Lasallian mission through association, which unites us to achieve our institutional vision and goals through the efforts of everyone in our community, the faculty, the staff, the students, alumni, and benefactors all working together. So it's just a little moment to reflect on how long we've been working on this stuff together, and it is really powerful and inspiring to think about. As a result of our recent actions and a decrease of positive cases in our community, we're ready to remove some of the temporary mitigations that we've recently put in place. So beginning Saturday, January 29th, fully vaccinated residential students will not be required to test and submit a weekly COVID-19 test. So we essentially have done that 4 weeks in a row with residential students, and so that's we're ready to stop with that weekly testing. And then on Tuesday, February 1st, the 50-person indoor gathering limit will be lifted on campus. And so we'll be back to our regular sizes for those things, knowing that we will continue to be vigilant about safety and the other COVID precautions that we have in place, including face coverings at events as well as or indoors as well as at events, and screening for visitors to campus. So I think we have a presentation here with some updates. The Will County cases per 100,000 today was 870. That's down significantly, but still very high. Positive cases connected to the Lewis community, we had 54 last week, 17 so far this week. We had much more than that the previous 2 weeks, so we feel really good about those numbers going down. And the vaccination rates in Will County have reached 65%, and the rate of people who have been boosted is up to 46%, so that's really great progress. A couple things just to remind you and to add to some information, and again, as usual, all of this will be in my email that will go out this afternoon. Vaccinations are required of all members of our community. It's required to have a booster by March 14th if you are eligible for a booster by that time, and then subsequently throughout the semester as people become eligible, they will need to get the booster. We do have a booster clinic scheduled on February 10th from 1 to 4 in St. Charles Bar, Mayo. Again, boosters are easy to find in the community, and my email today will have the usual link about ways to look up sites for vaccination across anywhere where you live, but it's great if you want to get it done on February 10th and you're eligible. That would be a great day to do it. Unvaccinated individuals in the community must continue to submit testing results before Thursday at 6 p.m. as we've done since the beginning of the fall semester. And we will continue to have weekly testing in Memorial Hall Mondays through Fridays from 9 to 4 p.m. And as always, remember to use the app to report a positive test, to report symptoms, or to upload vaccination or booster information. And so that's all we have to say about COVID.
Yeah, but one little thing, just because there's a question that came in about the power outages. So I just want to address that before we move to Rebecca, Dr. Pruitt. So a question came in about whether we have a permanent solution to this, or the power is just going to keep going out intermittently, and it's not. As I was trying to explain, there were just strange things that kept on happening. Not only once we get the transformer in, will we have a new transformer, the fuses will be good, and everything should be fine, but we're also adding some redundancies so that the permanent solution will also have a backup system which should keep everything going. And that's primarily, I can't say that there couldn't be a power outage in Founders Hall or in JFK, because there could be a fuse that went out there. We're constantly working to keep all of our systems up to date and ready for any eventuality, but I can't commit that there'll be no power outages. But we are really working to make sure that there's a redundant backup generator, so that if the power did go out to the LRC for a lightning strike or whatever, that we would end up with a generator that could keep the systems up, the email, et cetera, all those things up. So yes, there's a permanent solution. It is coming soon, and we should be through this in the next, 2 or 3 weeks. I don't like to make commitments. I think it'll be sooner than that, but 2 or 3 weeks we should be in good shape. So anyway, but we have a guest with us today, Chris.
We do. I am very pleased now to welcome our guest, Dr. Rebecca Pruitt. Dr. Pruitt joined Lewis in 2012 to lead the newly created Early Childhood Education Program, which has grown from 10 students at the time to what is now 140 students. She is an associate professor in the Department of Education, serving also as co-chair of the department and program director for early childhood education programs. She's also currently the principal investigator for the Early Childhood Credential Completion Cohort Grant of the United States Department of Health and Human Services and the Illinois Board of Higher Education. Thank you, Rebecca, for being with us, and welcome.
Yeah, welcome, Rebecca. We're excited to have you.
Thank you. Thank you. Glad to be with you.
It's great to be with you, and I just read the name of that long name of the grant with lots of agency names on it, and that's really one of the reasons why we wanted to talk with you is to congratulate you on all your work to put together that grant. And we know it's so much work to make it happen, and both to get it and to carry it out. So, and we just wanted to share with our community more about how it works and what it is. So I guess that's our first question is just, could you tell us a little bit more about that grant and who it's helping and what it is exactly?
Sure. So we're working on really two projects that'll be highlighted today, but the beginning of that was the grant that we're discussing now. And these were designed to address really a multi-layered problem in our field. So I'll just to provide a little bit of context, I'll describe a couple of aspects. So the first is what we call the problem of the bifurcated early childhood workforce. So, just an example of this would be let's say we're in the city of Chicago and we have a preschool teacher who's working with 3 and 4-year-old students in a classroom. And this classroom is actually part of Chicago Public Schools. So, this teacher has a license and degree, and this person starting salary was probably around $56,000 with benefits and retirement. And then right down the street, maybe a block away, at a place, let's say it's called ABC Child Care Center, we have another classroom of 3 and 4-year-olds with a lead teacher there who has gone through lots and lots of training and education to be in that classroom. But this person is working for not much more than minimum wage, maybe not even a living wage. And so this is a problem that we've had in our country for a very long time. And so these projects are looking to address that problem. And then there's an additional layer, and that's that our teachers who are in the public schools are still overwhelmingly white and female, and so they're not really an adequate representation of their student populations. So, by contrast, the workforce that's employed by childcare centers as well as by schools in assistant level positions is actually much more diverse than our current workforce of licensed lead teachers in public schools. So, the grant that we referred to that we're currently in year 2 of really is designed to address those two issues simultaneously by providing increased access to degree and licensure attainment for our diverse and under-resourced workforce so that they can then move into higher paying and more professionalized positions, which then creates a better quality of life for them, but then also a higher quality experience for our public school students. So the summer of 2020, right after the pandemic started, is when this grant was launched. So we are one of 3 4-year institutions in Illinois that were awarded this grant. And we were notified in the middle of the summer of 2020. And our first students started in August of 2020. So that was a very hardworking summer for a lot of people to recruit and onboard those students that were part of that first year of the grant. And so now we are in year 2 of that grant, and we were awarded additional money for year 2. So now we're up over $1 million for that grant. And we just registered and onboarded our last group of students for year 2 for that grant. So we're now around 90 students who have come in through this grant over the last couple of years. And that grant will run until December of 2022 when all those folks are completing their degrees and credentials.
So Rebecca, could you just share a little bit about what it means to the student? Meaning, I mean, in terms of help with scholarship, as you said, you recruited these students. So what does it mean for a student who's looking to be in early childhood in terms of the affordability issue for them?
Yep. Yeah, so that's the beauty of this grant. Over 90% of the funds are directly deposited into student accounts to pay tuition. So as I was a part of working groups leading up to the request for proposals for this grant, we were asked for feedback, and I repeatedly said what we really need is money. What the students really need is tuition dollars more than anything else. And so, as an institution, we have the infrastructure to really support students as they're coming in through their educational studies and through some things that we included as part of the grant project. So, for example, my colleague, Dr. Juana Reyes, is working with all of these grant recipients in a coaching mentoring role, sort of on the side, in addition to her instructional role. So she's providing support, she's providing mentoring, and so we're providing all of that. But more than 90% of the actual funds are earmarked for tuition dollars. So it's really the money that for tuition that was the big sticking point for accessibility. So people who are working full time in these positions just aren't making enough money to really make it worthwhile for them to go to school if they're not having this kind of support.
Thank you.
Rebecca, I think you may have said this, but I may have missed it. When these students who are going through the program now through this grant graduate, are they going back to their communities? Are they required to go back to their communities? How does that work exactly in terms of where they end up working or where they go to work?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we still have yet to see exactly where year two graduates will end up and where they will go. They're definitely staying in their own communities. We have a large percentage of our participants are what we call paraprofessionals in the classroom. So they are assistant teachers in a classroom. They may have been working there for years, and the full intention is for them to once they are a licensed teacher, remain in that school or at least in that district and add to their lead teaching pool. So that is really the progression that we're seeing. So we do have graduates that completed their program for year one, and all of them obtained new positions as a lead position. So it's really working out that they are staying where they are. That's the trend that we're seeing so far. So we have some still in the pipeline, but that's what the intention is, and that's what we're looking to see.
Great.
That's great. So, Rebecca, one of the things that I'm interested in is maybe you could just talk a little bit more about our early childhood education program here at Lewis. And maybe as you talk about this, I've been struck by, the little reading I do in this area. You're obviously an expert in this area, but the amazing importance of birth to 5 in terms of who a human being becomes, right? What it means for us as a learner, as a citizen. So early childhood, you could maybe talk about the program, but maybe if you could preamble it with how important those years are for all of us, right? And especially as a parent when you think about that part. So anything you have to say on that would be great.
Yeah, there's no way to overstate it, right? I mean, the science is very clear. There's no debate. The first 5 years are the most critical years in a person's life in terms of how they grow and develop, and it sets the stage. It really is the critical moment of their lives in terms of lifelong development, lifelong well-being. So there's no debate about this. The science is incredibly clear, and as technology advances in terms of brain research and being able to actually see inside the human brain and the infants and what is happening there, we're just confirming and further establishing that these years are the most critical years. And so the work that we do in early childhood is by default incredibly critical work and does require a high level of skill. It requires education in child growth and development. So our program is a program that leads to licensure in the state of Illinois. And the state of Illinois defines early childhood as birth through second grade. So all of our graduates are licensed to teach in all of those classrooms in lots of different contexts. And our program is unique in the state of Illinois because we have integrated special education as well as English as a second language into our program. So every single graduate comes away with preparation in working with every young child that they might encounter in the classroom. So that's something that makes our program unique and in preparation. And we believe that you really need to have that holistic, integrated preparation before working in a classroom with young children.
Thank you.
That's really great, Rebecca. I mean, I guess one of the subtexts of the grant is really that these teachers need all of the skills that you just described, and they need a university education. So it's really wonderful to see that it's really just a support for that idea or that notion that our early childhood teachers are professionals with really sophisticated skills. And it's great to see the state recognize that through supporting universities to do our part in this work. I want to go back to, you said earlier you have two things to talk about. So I think we also, connected to this work, have joined the Early Childhood Access Consortium for Equity. And so could you tell us a little bit about that and how it connects to what we've been talking about with the grant?
Sure. So we talked about the tuition dollars, the money that's needed, but there are many other issues that educators in that part of our workforce have come up against in terms of barriers. So many of these individuals accumulate course credits over time. We've had several come through as part of the grant who have more than 100 credit hours. One person even had 130 credit hours without a degree. So this is something that we see quite often among this particular workforce. So they encounter barriers when they try to transfer to a four-year institution after having been in a community college or multiple institutions. They encounter barriers there. They encounter barriers when it just comes to navigating through the university system and financial aid and all of that. So a consortium has been created. Our state lawmakers decided to put it in rules. So we are actually a part of a new endeavor in the state of Illinois in which all public institutions, both 2-year and 4-year, are required to participate, and then private institutions and specific institutions were invited to participate. So, so thanks to the leadership from Dr. Kip Klein, who is our interim dean in COES, really supporting this work and joining this work personally himself. We have signed an agreement to be a part of it and are in meetings to prepare our programs in our institutions for welcoming students that really are part of the same workforce that we've been working with through the grant, but it's now sort of expanding so that statewide institutions are able to access some tuition money. So if we agree to multiple stipulations that are a part of this consortium, including transferability of courses, the use of PLA to give credit for prior work experience and for trainings. So a lot of these folks have had lots of training in early childhood that's been outside of higher education. And so agreeing to work with each individual student and their transcript and really provide the smoothest possible pathway through. So the consortium does more than just award scholarship money, but they also require certain things from participating institutions to make sure that these students are having the smoothest possible experience in moving through to degree and licensure. So that is actually right now starting. So they're sort of overlapping. So the grant will end December of 2022, and the consortium work is starting now this semester. And so we hope to welcome new students this coming fall as part of that program.
So I know we want to get to some other things, but I'd like to kind of try to pull some of these strands together because, and I guess my question is around your optimism or pessimism, but, and I think you're a very optimistic person, but I want to ask my question first. And it's really around how we as a society are approaching early childhood, because it's been a real problem, as you've outlined, in terms of pay, appreciation of how important these 5-6 years are in somebody's life, how we've compensated people, how we viewed people who worked in this field. And it seems like the $1 million towards the initial grant, which is kind of saying we want to help these people who have been working in this field to be appreciated as professionals and get jobs that pay them more. And then the second is this kind of consortial agreement, which means don't waste your time in higher ed getting credits that aren't going to be counted, so to speak. And we're going to hold people accountable to saying when people spend their hard-earned dollars to get credit somewhere towards a degree, it's going to count. Those all seem like good moves from a kind of political level, I guess is what I'm thinking of, and us as taxpayers putting more money into this. But you've been working in this field for a long time. There's a lot of other things that are still not working. So I guess I'm trying to get a sense of whether you think the direction of the country and the state of Illinois are moving in a way that you and we can get into your research, you as somebody who thinks about these issues all the time, feels is at least nudging in a positive direction, or are we still so far away from treating these issues seriously that you're a little bit pessimistic? So I'm just interested in some of your thoughts on that.
Right, that's an excellent question. I don't know if I would label it pessimism, but I am very skeptical. Our progress is excruciatingly slow in this regard, and there are even conversations happening right now at the federal level about this issue. We have never fully resourced or even come close to fully resourcing the early childhood workforce, work in early childhood in this country. It's always been a piecemeal, I like to say duct tape it together type scenario where we've got these caregivers over here and these over here and these over here, and people opening private businesses and in their homes. And a lot of these folks are providing good, high quality care, but they are not compensated for what they are doing. And parents can't bear the weight of it because they're already paying far more than they can afford to pay. And so it's just been a never ending struggle for all of these years. Some of us are starting to allow ourselves to feel a little bit hopeful because we are seeing some money come down to support educational attainment. However, those folks, what will happen is that they will move on into a public school setting, and that will be good for the public school setting. They will have high quality, diverse teachers, and that will be wonderful for them. But then our childcare centers and folks who work with infants and toddlers, the most critical time of life, are still nowhere near being compensated for the work that they're doing. So it is a political issue, very much so, and it is an awareness issue, and it's something that I've been a part of advocating for my nearly 30 years in this field, and will continue probably for a lifetime. But I do hope that in my lifetime I see at least some progress on that front.
Thank you.
Well, I'd like to say a couple things. Rebecca mentioned, well, first of all, on your question, I'm a former dean of education, and everything Rebecca has talked about was not happening 7 or 8 years ago when I had that job. And so that's a little bit of testament to our own Lewis Department of Education and to Rebecca's work, but it's also, I feel, since I don't have to live in it every day like Rebecca does, really, really seems really noticeable. And, and all of these changes in the state of Illinois seem super positive on this front. And I think maybe the wage issue is maybe the thing I'm most beleaguered by when I think about it, and Rebecca mentioned that briefly. And then now I'd like to point out a couple of things that she said really quickly and really modestly. We were, I forget what you said, Rebecca, one of 2 or 3 institutions who received the grant.
There were 5 institutions, but only 3 at the university level. So 2 of those were community colleges. Mm-hmm.
That's right. And then we were chosen to be one of the very few private institutions to be a part of the consortium. And so that is because of who we are, because of the work that Rebecca and Dr. Reyes and Dr. Klein and the other faculty in the department do to garner our reputation in this field. And again, I have a little bit of experience in this. It's not trivial to have a program that combines English language learning and special education and early childhood all in the same degree. It's very, very unique and innovative and thoughtful about the future, and so I cannot say enough how unique this is. And thank you, Rebecca, for that incredible work that's led up to this. And it really feels like we're being recognized for the work now, even though I know it's a lot of work to make it happen and to carry it out. We have a long way to go. I want to just maybe change the subject a little bit and ask you a little bit about your own work, if you have time for it now, after all the stuff we've been talking about. But tell us a little bit about what your particular scholarship interests are and what you're thinking about.
Yeah, so I'm particularly interested in early childhood teachers and how they make connections between the constructivist perspective in their work. So as early career teachers, how are they making those connections in their work, and also in equity pedagogies at the same time. So recently did a study on the stories of immigrant families and how those impacted pre-service teachers who themselves were part of an immigrant family or who access stories from other families. So I'm very interested in the actual work that we do, studying the work that we do and the impact of that work in their work once they leave us.
That's great.
It's really great. I just, I guess I want to second what Chris just said. We can't say enough about what the specific program has done, the college has done in terms of having this, really diverse array. It fits well. I mean, as we all know, and I hope everybody on the show knows, we say this, we've said it a few times over the last couple of years, that John Baptiste de La Salle is the patron saint of teachers. Education is at the core of what LaSallian universities do. The work that you do, Rebecca, on that early childhood piece of education, which is a lifelong journey, is so crucial, and the enhancement of the quality of that education for the people working in the field. We are just so proud of the work that you've done. So we thank you for being with us today. Wrapping up the show, we are looking forward to next week. Grateful that Chris and Dr. Pruitt were with us today. Good luck to all of our athletes. Please stay safe and warm and healthy. And make sure that if you do feel any symptoms that you go to the app and report, get tested. Please get boosted when we have the booster clinics on campus. And again, if you think of something tonight, go to askus@lewisu.edu and send us a note. Blessings to you and your family. Have a great weekend.